everyone. Welcome back inside Centura Health Training Center for another episode of Broncos Now. As always, I'm your host, Sydney Jones. And coming up on today's episode, the team hits the road to head to Chicago tomorrow. So we'll hear from head coach Sean Payton and take a look at this week's final injury report. All that and more coming up. The Broncos are back on the road tomorrow as they're set to face the Chicago Bears this Sunday. We heard from head coach Sean Payton today for the final time ahead of Sunday's matchup, and he discussed how the team will look to respond.
Man, I thought we had one of our better weeks. I thought the energy was good. Look, you pick yourself up. This is a grit league. There's, the toughness required, and so I thought well. And
he went on to talk about the work the team put in this week.
I think you got to use your gut relative to what they need, and that began Monday with the team meeting, and then at practice, I felt real good about the energy this week. But I can remember we were 4-1 playing Detroit, and they had kind of had one of those streaks from the year before, and I don't know how many games, but we were a heavy favorite, and he had us all convinced by Friday we were playing the 85 Bears. I mean, you couldn't get to the game fast enough. So I think you trust your instincts relative to your team and where you're at.
Head coach Sean Payton also talked about the leaders on this team and how he saw them step up.
We had great culture for years, and then 14, 15, it got sideways, and then so it's a little bit like a garden. You got to be tending to it, but it really starts with bringing in the right guys, and then the really good teams end up leading themselves, and we're in that transition of finding it. So
now it's time to take a look at this week's final injury report. Outside linebacker Frank Clark, inside linebacker Josie Jewell, and defensive tackle Mike Purcell all did not participate at practice today and are ruled out for Sunday's game. Meanwhile, safety Justin Simmons also did not participate at practice today, but is listed as questionable. Now joining me here inside the Broncos podcast studio for a game preview is Broncos lead writer Eric Dlala. Eric, thanks for joining me on this Friday.
You got it. So we both got the blue memo.
We do. We're matching. I love it. Well, Eric, we heard head coach Sean Payton say earlier in the show that, this was one of the better weeks of practice for this team. He said the energy was really good this week. Great way to finish off the week as the team heads to Chicago tomorrow.
Yeah, I think his point about toughness and grit and how you respond is well taken, and that's what this team is going to have to do. You're 0-3. You're not where you want to be. How do you respond? How do you bounce back? How do you parlay some of this positive energy from the week into getting a win against a Bears team that's also desperate for a win?
Yeah. Well, Eric, we just finished looking at the injury report, so let's start there. Starting with safety Justin Simmons. We saw him as a limited participant throughout the full week, except today he did not participate in practice. Given the fact that there's been so many injuries at the safety position, what does this mean heading into Sunday's game as he's listed as questionable?
Yeah, we'll have to see what happens, right? Still listed as questionable, so there's a chance. You don't ever like to see a guy be limited and then go backwards in terms of participation, but still questionable in the injury report. Obviously, this team is better with Justin Simmons out there, and we heard Vance Joseph on Thursday say that he would kind of help some communication be ironed out at all three levels. So you hope to have him out there. If not, you've still got Kareem Jackson, obviously, and then, maybe Delarian Turner-Yell takes a step forward from last week. Sang Bassi remains an option, I would imagine, back there. The team did not make J.L. Skinner active, did not elevate Devon Key from the practice squad, so maybe they consider one of those moves as well if Justin Simmons cannot go. But I'd imagine if Justin Simmons can't play, you'd probably go with a similar plan to last week, just hope that the execution is a little bit better.
Well, we saw that inside linebacker Josie Jewell and defensive tackle Mike Purcell, they are out for Sunday's game. So what's kind of the plan there for those positions?
Yeah, Mike Purcell, obviously a guy that's rotating in, giving you some snaps there on the defensive line. Probably just have to count on a younger guy, maybe in an Elijah Garcia. Maybe have to just load the box a little bit more. We'll have to see what the Broncos' defensive plan is there. Obviously, you got to stop the run first when it comes to the Bears. And that's going to fall on the linebackers as well. Drew Sanders, it sounds like, is going to be the guy that goes in place of Josie Jewell. Sean Payton kind of said he'd earned that right, that they've seen it from him in the preseason. Time for him to take a step forward and get a bigger opportunity. But it's going to take that front seven playing well, being true to their gaps, and playing with gap integrity in order to make sure that Justin Fields doesn't take off, because as we heard Sean Payton say Friday, he can turn a 3rd and 8 into a 22, 25-yard gain, and all of a sudden they're in scoring range or they've got a first down or something like that. So we'll fall on a couple of reserve players to help make sure that happens on Sunday.
For sure. Well, sticking with the defense here, Eric, in what ways do you really just hope to see this unit take a step forward this weekend?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you want to see Miami aside, right? Because there was a lot that went wrong there. I think when you look at the first 2 games, it's about playing sound defense and making big plays. And whether that's, we saw that early in the Commanders game, a timely sack. We saw it against the Raiders in terms of an end zone interception. Obviously it would be great if this team came out and just shut down Chicago, and that could certainly happen. But I think the logical step is just set the edge, be better tacklers, be solid in your fundamentals, and then just make big plays here or there. And you don't have to be perfect, but just can you get a strip sack? Can you get an interception? Can you make a big tackle for loss on 3rd down, or bat a pass down, or get just a normal sack? Can you do those sorts of things that can help change the game or give the offense a short field or an opportunity? Again, you don't have to go out there and shut them out, but can you make kind of the play in the moment when you need to make it? That's what this team, the first 2 weeks, was kind of missing, right? It's just both offensively and defensively. Can you make that one game-altering play when it matters? And so that's what I'll be looking for against Chicago. I mean, Justin Fields he can still move around. He's a good quarterback. And if, like I said before, if you're not true to your gaps or don't set the edge or aren't tight enough in your rush, he'll take off and make you look silly and just be down the field in a flash. We saw what he did last year, obviously, so many times where he'd break free of the pocket and run for a long touchdown. You don't want to be the guys that let him do that. So, defensively, just try to play solid fundamental football and then make the big plays when they're available.
Or switching to the offense here, Russell Wilson, he's put up some good numbers throughout the first 3 weeks. And I know we heard head coach Sean Payton talk this week just about, his decision making, the fact that he's moving well, he's operating quickly, throwing the ball well. What are your expectations for him this week as he continues to build off these performances?
Yeah, I mean, Russ he's obviously not been the problem at all. He's played, I think, good football. Yeah. The decision making has been good. Obviously, a couple plays you'd like to have back here or there. But for the most part, he's given guys chances to make plays. I thought in that Miami game, he made a great play to escape to his right and throw it to Cortland Sutton for a touchdown. On another play, he again found Sutton, and Sutton wasn't able to hold on, but it was another great play by Russell. We've seen the touch with the deep ball. Can still probably get to the line of scrimmage a little bit faster and eliminate some of those mistakes. That would have wiped out at least one penalty there against Miami. But listen, he's playing well. I expect him to continue to play well. He's clearly comfortable in Sean Payton's system. Sean Payton's putting him in position to do things well. Can you find more success in the second half? That's important, obviously. And really just at 3 games at this point, I think it's still too soon to start a narrative that, this is a first-half team instead of a second-half team. I view it more as, hey, this team can be explosive in bursts there. But certainly being able to play more consistently. And this might be a chance for Russell Wilson to really open things up, throw the ball down the field. Complete a lot of passes. The Bears, I think they ruled out 3 defensive backs this week, so including safety Eddie Jackson, who we know, former All-Pro, really good football player. So this could be a chance here for Russell Wilson to have a lot of success, and maybe Marvin Mims, Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton. You could see those guys having a big game, I think.
Well, I know head coach Sean Payton also talked about how he hopes to see this run game get going, specifically in the second half. You mentioned that, Eric. How do you hope to see, I guess, just Javonte and Samaje get the ball more?
Yeah, I mean, it's some of it is game dependent, right? If you're down, it's probably going to make you go away from the run game, which is what happened this past week. There were very few possessions in the Raiders game, so obviously that played a role, made an impact on that game.
For sure.
And then certainly if you're behind the chains, it makes it more difficult to run the football. Yeah. I think, though, this team is still committed to that as an identity. We heard Sean Payton say, we want to look like we did in that Raiders game where we're running the football, wearing teams down. The Broncos didn't convert in the red zone against the Raiders, but there was that one drive toward the end where Samaje Perine started to build on some carries, ends up, I think, a 12-yarder all the way down inside the 10-yard line. Right. That's what I think this team can do to teams, and especially in the fourth quarter. And so, is this the week it happens? I don't know. You might, like I said, you might look at the opponent and say, hey, we can really throw the ball around this weekend. Yeah. But certainly I think – big picture moving forward, this is a team that still wants to rely on the run game. It's going to set up play action. It can set up the screen, set up those deep shots down the field. I mean, everything starts with the run game and makes teams, if you run the football well, you can't play that shell coverage that we saw in week 1. And so that's what's going to help this team. And Javonte has just looked stronger and stronger each week. He and Samaje, I think, are playing off each other really well. And I would expect that to continue. And certainly you hope late in this game you have a lead and you can rely on those guys to kind of wind the clock down and secure your first win of the year.
Going off that, Eric, the last question here for you. There's been so much talk this week about just how crucial a win would be for this team on Sunday. And, given the fact that this team has started the season 0-3, what do you really think a win would mean for this team?
Yeah, it's one. And, I know it doesn't sound like much, but we've heard Mike McGlinchey, we've heard Sean Payton, Russell Wilson. All it takes is one. That starts a streak, and maybe you find something you can build off. Maybe you find something that becomes your identity, that gives you some momentum, some hope, some faith moving forward, some belief. All those things I think can come from one victory. And there's a lot of goals out there that this team has, and hopefully the Broncos get back to a point where they're in playoff contention. They can talk about those sorts of things. Sean Payton's, I think, 2007 team in New Orleans started 0-4, made its way back to 4-4, and kind of got themselves back in that conversation. But before you can, and let's not start 0-4. We don't want to do that.
No.
But before you can get to that point, you've got to take that first step. And I think that's part of learning to win and learning to be, a good football team is not overlooking any opponent. Definitely. Sean talked on Friday about, I think, at one point in his career, they're preparing to play a Lions team that lost a lot of football games. He said Bill Parcells had them thinking that they were poised to play the 85 Bears. And so you've got to have that mindset all the time. But yeah, there's no doubt a win gets a bad taste out of your mouth. It puts you on the right track toward a more successful season. And you never know what it could kickstart. But again, you've got to start with one.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we'll see that this Sunday. Eric, appreciate you joining the show today.
You got it, Sid.
And Broncos fans, don't forget, Paramount Plus is your streaming home for every local NFL and CBS game this season. Visit ParamountPlus.com to start your free trial and stream Russell Wilson and the team as they battle the league's best. Plus, get an all-access pass to 24/7 NFL content with CBS Sports HQ, Fantasy Football Today, NFL Slime Time, and more. And this year, Paramount Plus is your streaming destination for Super Bowl 58. Another action-packed Broncos season with NFL and CBS awaits, so stream Paramount Plus from any device all season long. Well, that'll do it for today's episode of Broncos Now. Broncos Country, thanks so much for tuning in. I'll meet you right back here on the Broncos Podcast Network and YouTube Monday following the game. I'll see you all then.